Moving into a new neighborhood always comes with its share of excitement and apprehension. The quaint little house on Elm Street, with its white picket fence and blooming garden, seemed like the perfect place for a fresh start. As I unpacked my boxes and arranged the furniture, I made a point to wave hello to the neighbors passing by. Most gave me friendly smiles and nods, adding to the welcoming atmosphere. The first few days were blissfully uneventful. I was settling into my new routine, enjoying the quiet and serenity of the area. That was until the first night, when I heard a series of peculiar noises outside. At first, I thought it was just a cat, perhaps a neighborhood feline roaming about. I shrugged it off and turned off the light. But the noises persisted, a faint scratching sound accompanied by the occasional rustle. I peeked out the window and saw nothing but darkness. It seemed like it was coming from around the side of the house. I told myself it was probably just the wind or a stray animal. I turned on the light, and the noises ceased. Sighing in relief, I went back to bed, convincing myself it was nothing to worry about. The next night, however, the sounds returned. This time, they were louder and more deliberate. I could hear a faint rustling near my window, as though someone was trying to pry it open. My heart raced as I grabbed a flashlight and swung the light outside. The noise stopped abruptly, and there was no one in sight. I began to feel uneasy, realizing that something more sinister might be happening. Determined to feel safer, I decided to take action. I had heard that installing security cameras around the house was a good way to keep an eye on things. I got a set of cameras and had them installed within a couple of days. They covered every angle of the property, including the spots where I had heard the strange noises. A few days later, I was checking the footage on the security app on my phone. The cameras had captured a lot of nothing, just the usual squirrels and the occasional stray cat. But then, I came across a video clip that made my blood run cold. In the dead of night, a figure appeared on the footage, lurking just outside my window. The person was wearing dark clothing, and their face was hidden by a hood. They moved stealthily around the house, clearly trying to avoid detection. The camera recorded them attempting to tamper with the window, just as I had heard before. I watched in shock as the figure hesitated when the security light turned on, briefly illuminated by its glow. The figure then scurried away, clearly frightened by the sudden exposure. My heart pounded as I reviewed the footage. It became evident that the person was not some random stranger, but rather someone who had been watching me for days. The realization that this was happening in my own neighborhood was chilling. I reported the footage to the police, who were able to use it to identify the individual. It turned out that the stalker was indeed a neighbor, someone who had been living just a few houses down. I contacted the authorities immediately. They handled the situation swiftly, and the stalker was apprehended. While the neighborhood returned to its usual calm, I learned a valuable lesson. I continued to enjoy my new home with a heightened sense of awareness, knowing that even in the calmest surroundings, it's crucial never to let your guard down. I had always felt secure in my apartment. It was a modest place, but it was mine, and I had never had any reason to be afraid. But that changed one fateful night. I was home alone, enjoying a quiet evening after a long day at work. The apartment was dimly lit, with just the soft glow of the TV illuminating the living room. I was curled up on the couch, engrossed in a movie, when I heard a noise. It was faint, almost like a whisper, but it made the hair on the back of my neck stand up. I paused the movie and listened carefully. The noise came again, this time louder and more distinct. It was definitely coming from the direction of my front door. My heart raced, and I tried to convince myself it was just the building settling or maybe a neighbor. But then I heard it. The unmistakable sound of the front door creaking open. I had locked it earlier, so it shouldn't have been moving. Panic surged through me as I realized someone was inside my apartment. I quickly turned off the TV and silenced my phone. Every creak of the floorboards in the hallway outside my room seemed to echo like a drum in my ears. I felt paralyzed with fear, but I knew I had to act. I carefully crept towards the window in the kitchen, hoping I could escape and call for help. The apartment was small, and I could see the intruder's shadow moving in the hallway. My hands trembled as I fumbled with the window lock. Just as I managed to pry open the window, I heard footsteps growing closer. The intruder was approaching the living room, where I had been sitting only moments before. I squeezed through the window and dropped down to the ground outside. I ran to the neighbor's apartment and pounded on the door, my breath coming in ragged gasps. They let me in, and I called 911. The operator's calm voice was a lifeline in the midst of my terror. As I waited for the police to arrive, I could see the flashing lights of their cruisers reflecting off the nearby buildings. The intrusion had shaken me to my core, but I was grateful that I had managed to escape unharmed. The police searched the apartment and found evidence that someone had been there, but the intruder had already fled. They assured me they would increase patrols in the area and advised me to be vigilant. That night, I couldn't sleep. The apartment, once a sanctuary, now felt like a prison. I had never imagined that my sense of security could be shattered so abruptly. I installed a new lock on my door and took other precautions to make sure I would never feel so vulnerable again. The incident left a mark on me that I'm still trying to shake. Every creak of the floor, every unexpected noise makes my heart race. It's a constant reminder of how quickly things can change and how important it is to stay vigilant, even in the places we think we're safest. I was just settling in with a book when I heard the creak of the attic stairs. I froze, my heart pounding in my chest. We'd just moved into this old house, and the attic had always made me uneasy. I tried to call Mark, but the call went straight to voicemail. I quietly padded to the base of the attic stairs, my breath catching in my throat. The creaks continued, and I felt a chill run down my spine. I took a deep breath and began to climb the stairs, each step feeling like a mile. When I reached the top, I pushed open the attic door and peered inside. The dim light from the hallway barely illuminated the space, but I could make out the shape of old furniture covered in dusty sheets. There was no sign of anyone. I stepped inside, my footsteps echoing in the stillness. I noticed the door at the far end of the attic was slightly open. I moved cautiously toward it, each step accompanied by the sound of the floorboards creaking under my weight. As I neared the door, I heard a soft shuffle behind me. I spun around, but there was no one there. The feeling of being watched was overwhelming. I moved closer to the door and slowly pushed it open. The sight that met my eyes made my blood run cold. The door led to a small, dark room with a single window, and there, in the dim light, I saw it. A figure moving in the shadows, hiding just out of sight. I backed away, my heart racing. I turned to leave, but the door slammed shut behind me. I was trapped. I could hear the figure moving around, and the sound of heavy breathing filled the small space. Panic surged through me as I searched for a way out. I tried the door, but it was locked tight. My only option was to find another way out. I spotted a small window near the ceiling and climbed onto an old chest to reach it. As I pushed open the window and scrambled through, I could hear the figure getting closer. I squeezed through the opening and fell into the backyard, landing on the grass with a thud. I scrambled to my feet and ran to the nearest neighbor's house. I pounded on their door, my voice trembling as I explained what had happened. The police arrived shortly after, and while they searched the house, I couldn't shake the feeling of dread that had settled over me. The attic had been empty when they checked, but I knew what I had seen. The police never found any evidence of an intruder, and I was left with the haunting memory of that night. Every creak in the house now sends shivers down my spine, and I can't shake the feeling that something, or someone, is still out there, watching and waiting.